Hello, I'm Samantha Tong, Labrakeeta Marketing, and this is the first in my series of interviews with specialists within certain areas that are within marketing or related to marketing. Please excuse the dog in the background. He is the Labrakeeta, that's where the name comes from. And today I'm here with Steve Ponton, who is a LinkedIn expert. So Steve, you've been active on LinkedIn since really early doors, like what, 1 year after it was launched, 2004, is that right?
Yeah, within 12 months, Samantha, and
wow.
Thanks for inviting me onto the call. It's great to be speaking to you. In fact, yeah, it's great to be speaking to anybody at the moment, isn't it, really? But,
yeah. I was going to say, you got a couple of years on me. I thought I was early doors, but you've spent the last 6 years developing your expertise in order to teach others. Is it Miles Duncan?
Miles is I'm an associate partner of LinkedIn Success Systems, and Miles Duncan is the founder and the chief executive officer. So, yeah, way back in the Stone Ages in 2004, I joined LinkedIn. It was founded in 2003, so within 12 months of it being founded, I was kind of on there, and I seem to recall at one point you got some kind of gong or accolade or whatever that said, I'm pretty sure I was in the first 500,000 subscribers.
Oh wow.
So when you consider they have 722 million subscribers today, it's a reasonable achievement, I think, isn't it? So it first came along, I became aware of it. I thought it was a really, really useful thing to be involved in back then, when social media was really not that prevalent. And my thought about it was that, well, if I can connect with people digitally, if you like, it's much easier than spending time visiting people face to face, etc. And my background had been in sales and business development from the early 90s, at a time when mobile phones didn't exist, essentially. Email was only in its kind of infancy. Sales calls had to be done in advance in your diary, had to be put in your diary, and then you would physically drive to a client's premises, and if unfortunately they were off sick or weren't available, then you kind of had to sit in reception for a long time and perhaps try and pick up on other people. So LinkedIn seemed like a fantastic concept way back in 2004 in terms of growing my network and of course using it as a CV, somewhere to put your CV in case a much better job came along.
Yeah. It's a great starting point as well. I found when it's time to do your CV, download it and then you can start putting a good CV together.
Absolutely, and I think that's one of the features that a lot of people forget exists. You download the PDF and you can work on it, and then you can make a few changes. So lots of features within LinkedIn that are really, really useful, and people often forget what's there. Yeah.
So I obviously, my focus, because I'm a marketing consultant with LinkedIn, is very much the marketing communication side. And there's an awful lot, a huge amount of overlap. But it's also a really powerful tool for business development, which is really your focus, isn't it?
It is, yeah, absolutely. So our methodology really is to initially take people off LinkedIn. We ask that you kind of close LinkedIn down, close your laptop or close the tab or whatever. And then we really ask you to focus on your, clarifying your brand for LinkedIn. And that essentially gives you the tools to consider who it is you really want to target on LinkedIn. So what type of companies, the individual role within the company, because LinkedIn allows you to do that. It's not like in a previous life where the receptionist or somebody's PA were a gatekeeper for you. If people are on LinkedIn, it's kind of open season, and they've got the choice then to make whether they want to connect with you or not. So our methodology is really about sales and business development using, as we said, the 722 million registered users on LinkedIn.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, so I'll start with start with some questions.
Oh, good.
So what do you think are the 3 biggest mistakes that most of us make on LinkedIn?
Oh, I don't think we've got long enough on this particular call to go through them in great detail, but there's a lot of the stuff's really fundamental and simple and can be easily fixed. So one that I come across quite often, because LinkedIn will regularly suggest to you or offer you up, if you like, some connections based on the algorithm. Now, please don't get tied up in the algorithm. It is what it is. There's nothing you can do about it. But if you're mindful of it and you do some of the stuff that we teach in our methodology, then the algorithm will take care of itself. But essentially, LinkedIn offers you up clients. It offers you up people that the algorithm has identified you may be interested in connecting with. And something that I've seen recently quite often, because more and more people have joined LinkedIn because of the pandemic situation and the working from home, etc., is that they have put together this wonderful profile that includes lots of information about what they do and how they can help people. And then there's this big grey circle where the photograph should be. Now, that's a dead simple thing to fix. It's in your settings, but if you haven't set it up correctly, then anybody that's not a first degree connection won't get to see your wonderful image. So quite often, if LinkedIn's offering me new connections and I see the big grey circle in the middle, I kind of know from looking at the profile that they've actually spent time on doing the profile, but they forgot to add that final sort of click, or they've checked the wrong box that says, let the whole of LinkedIn see my profile photograph. So that's one of the common failures at the moment. The other one that's really common, and I've seen it from chief executives of companies to sales directors to HR directors, they've spent a bit of time on adding the new business, a business that they've joined perhaps, or been headhunted to or whatever. And then in the contact information, there's perhaps a website that's relevant to a business that they were involved in perhaps previous to that or previous to that. So I've seen examples where people who have perhaps changed jobs in the last 4 or 5 years have still got a link in their contact information to a previous business who may, and is often, now their competitor. So if somebody's jumped onto your profile, then they look at your contact details, then they click on the website and it takes them to the competitor, you've lost out. You've lost it big time. So whenever you're updating your profile, if you've switched jobs from a different company in particular, please always make sure that you completely update your contact information. It's really important. And on top of that, it gives you an opportunity to add things like your Twitter account if you want, which then once people have looked on your contact information, they can click and join you on Twitter as well. So that's kind of number 2 in terms of the mistakes at the moment. I suppose the biggest one for most people in terms of using LinkedIn not to find a job, but to do business development or sales, is that their profile often reads like a CV. So I did this, I did that, I did the other, look at me, I'm really good, I've got these qualifications. For business development and sales, nobody cares. Nobody cares how qualified you are. All they want to know is how you're going to help them. So we use a pretty simple model, which we call the XYZ. I help X to do Y by helping them to do Z. So it kind of guides you to put your particulars on your profile in a way that you're talking more about your clients than you are about yourself. So that's really the biggest one. And the whole new tranche of people who have jumped on LinkedIn because of their circumstances are making all the same mistakes that people have done for a number of years. So we like to think that once we've helped you to sort of clarify your brand, we then help you to have the optimized profile that talks about your clients and not about you all the time. So that's the sort of three areas I would say pay attention to at the moment.
Okay, and that's all on your profile screen.
It is, yes. I don't know if you want me to share
Yeah, that'd be
as an
great.
example.
So people know where it is they need to go in and double check their contact details, for example.
Right, let me just make sure I've got the right screen to share. And then we'll do that. So here's my profile. You see that okay?
Yep.
Yep. So if we look at my profile in particular, my about section talks about clients, the pain points that they have. You know, you may struggle with time, resources, and backup. We specialize in 3 distinctive areas, etc., etc., etc. Now, you know, I've fallen a wee bit foul of not updating my profile, but I'm going to do that in the next couple of weeks. And, you know, I've included information on my about section where people can email me or give me a call. And it's the same with experience. It talks about who we help, how we help those people, and what the outcome for those clients or prospects is likely to be. So what we don't want to see is something in here that talks about me all the time, you know, me, myself, and I type stuff. So that hopefully will give you an idea of what a close to optimized profile should look like.
Okay, and the contact information, you talked about putting it in the about section, but it should also be correct when you click on contact info. I'm guessing that's what you're talking about, where they had the incorrect website, was it?
Yeah, well, a complete contact info section should look something like this. And again, you know, LinkedIn's the gift that keeps on giving. For example, lots of people perhaps put their main website landing page in this section here, where LinkedIn have actually given you the opportunity to put 3 particular parts of your website in there. So it might be reviews, for example, which are very, very powerful. It might be your blog, or it might just be a general overview of what your particular services are. And they also allow you to select the keywords that you want to include on your profile, which is useful for SEO, for SEO rather, and for searching on LinkedIn. So if I guess if I go to the next stage and just kind of show you what we do in terms of editing, this drop-down area here will give you a whole list of options, but it'll also give you an option to put in other. So you can then put in your keywords in this part here. So you can add up to 3 websites, as I said, that include perhaps your blog or your services, or perhaps client reviews, for example. Your telephone number should always be a business telephone number, and your email address. Again, profiles are very personal, but we recommend that you put in your business email address rather than a Gmail address or a Yahoo address or whatever. Otherwise, you're going to get business people emailing you on your
yeah, it's not
and as I said before, you can pop your Twitter account in there, which also allows you, when you're posting content, you have the option to post it onto LinkedIn, but also Twitter at the same time. So I do that on a regular basis. So lots of little features in there that really just help you get along, that you don't have to really think about once they've been set up.
Okay, brilliant. And so having talked about the 3 biggest mistakes people make, what are your 3 top tips?
The top tips tend to change. I'm amazed I got away with saying that there. The top tips tend to change.
Yeah.
Over time, I guess. You know, my top tips would be, you know, 3 particular things that I would suggest you do, but it may not be relevant to everybody. But one of the top tips that I would certainly say, and lots of people fall foul of, and if you don't mind, we'll use you as an example. There you are, Samantha. You can see that screen okay, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, So on the right-hand side of the landing page, if you like, is a section called People Also Viewed. Okay, so my top tip would be to switch in your settings and privacy, People Also Viewed, to no.
Okay, and that's just in your settings, yeah?
Yes, and the reason for suggesting that and recommending that is that we talk about in our orientation sessions the 4 seconds above the fold, which people like yourself in marketing will understand exactly what that is. It's the part where you land on either a website or a profile. The amount of time that you have to grab somebody's attention before you start to look in this area, below the fold, essentially. Now that 4 seconds has probably become much less than that these days, so it's probably a couple of seconds. So if I'm looking for somebody that has your expertise and I land on your profile page, within seconds I'll have made up my mind whether you're somebody that I think can help me. Now, if there's a distraction over on this side because I feel Emma's got a better photograph or Rob's got a more compelling logo or whatever, I'm immediately going to switch from you and jump onto Rob's profile or Claire's profile or Emma's profile. And quite often, I know you know Jessica very well, but it may be that, Jessica's a competitor. So you've immediately exposed yourself in the very, very short time that you've got to get somebody's attention to them jumping onto a competitor, for example. So that's a couple of reasons why we always recommend that you switch People Also Viewed to no. So that would be the first thing. The second thing would be, and if you don't mind, I'll stay on your example.
Yeah.
Second and third degree connections are privy to looking at your contact info. So, after this call, maybe you'll go off and pop another website in there, who knows. You might want to pop some reference to your the region that you cover or your location, because SEO, again, if I was to Google your expertise, I would probably ask for a B2B marketing expert in the Edinburgh area. So it's important that you've got sort of geotags or a geography reference in there. But the other mistake that people make is that if I'm looking at your profile for the first time, I have a look at your about and I'm quite impressed. I have a look at your experience. At that point, I may not want to connect with you right away. I might want to give you a call, or I might want to drop you an email rather than connect. So for anybody who's not a first degree connection, they won't see your contact information.
Okay, so you have to be a first degree connection to see that.
They're kind of forced to connect with you in order to learn more about you. If you've got your email, if we just go back to me, if you've got your email featured in your about section and your experience, as I have down here at the bottom, if somebody doesn't want to necessarily connect with me right at that point, they've at least got my telephone number. They can take a look at the website or they can email me. So that would be the second tip I would give to anybody who's updating the profile, to put their contact information into their about section and their experience, because you don't know if a client's going to jump immediately onto your about section or immediately onto your experience section. So you're giving them the option to do both. And because LinkedIn is open source, if you wanted to jump on my profile and just cut and paste and then adapt and pop that on your about section, you're perfectly at liberty to do that. So that would be top tip number 2. This might be an interesting one for you. My third recommendation or top tip would be to give recommendations.
Yeah.
Lots of people think that it's important only to receive recommendations because those are kind of direct referrals. But the point about giving recommendations is that when you give a recommendation, my profile pops up on Stuart's. So unless Stuart has had, and Stuart's a client of ours, unless Stuart has had others recommend him since I did, which I guess he has, or he's not accepted my my recommendation yet. Let's choose a different one. Try Faye perhaps. Then my profile will be sat on the recommended person's profile. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So if we go to Faye, who I'm pretty sure has, yeah, so anybody that visits Faye's profile and scrolls all the way down will see that I've given Faye a recommendation. And, you know, we've talked about how we've worked together with Faye as a client and what we've done for their business. But it gives you another opportunity in terms of promoting your brand, essentially, on other people's profiles. Now, once Faye gets another couple of recommendations, I will slip down the recommendation list, if you like, but you can adjust that as well. You can move your recommendations around so that the most relevant ones are kind of at the top of the pile, if that makes some sense. So anybody who feels at the moment that it's all about giving, it's all about receiving recommendations, then it's quite important to give recommendations as well, because it allows your profile to be featured on other people's profile.
And it sounds like you're suggesting not just giving recommendations to suppliers, but your clients as well.
Yeah, the whole LinkedIn is based on you know, various degrees of connectivity. So really what you're looking at and what we teach in our training is to be connected to clients, suppliers, customers, just really sort of think out of the box in terms of expanding your network, because every time you know, there's something in your feed regarding that person, you can, it's an opportunity for you to sort of expand your network. So if we look at, for example, some of the content that I've perhaps commented on today, let's see. If I go to all activity.
Yeah.
So Rob Moore, who's a guy that I've recently started to follow, find his content really, really interesting. He's popped up a post there today, so I've popped a like for that particular post. I can go back to it later on today and add a comment once I've kind of had a chance to do that. Adam Gray's put out some tips today, another person that I follow. And then because there's a conversation going on, I've liked a few of the comments that have been made there. I immediately appear in Kevin's, you know, in Kevin's radar, if you like, and Kevin might be interested to learn more about what I do to help clients, etc., etc. So it's all about participating and being engaged with prospects, clients, suppliers, across the board. The more people you can be engaged with, and the better the more effective your time is going to be on LinkedIn.
And with regard to that, with LinkedIn's current algorithms, I think I'm correct in saying it's like and comment much more valuable than shares. Is that correct?
That's one train of thought at the moment. I think the problem with people trying to second guess the algorithm is that what you hear today might be something completely different tomorrow, and you're not going to change the way that you operate just because somebody you know, mentioned that the algorithm is now going to favor one type of content or one type of activity over the other. And I think, as I said earlier, we try and avoid getting involved in the algorithm conversation because it's something that we can't really influence too much.
Just monitor what's performing at any one time, I guess, as a general thing.
Yeah, and I guess that's kind of the sort of thing that you would recommend your clients do anyway. If you can,
definitely.
If you can analyze what you're doing rather than trying to second guess what might be happening, I think that's probably a better way to spend your time, rather than getting stressed about, am I putting enough you know, videos out there? Am I sharing enough? If your general habit and methodology is to like, share, and comment. You know, people don't just like just clicking a like is very, very easy. You know, that's not really engaging. It's being lazy altogether, and just kind of putting something out there, hoping that that might get you some kind of traction or might get you some kind of attention. It's all about genuinely being engaged and making comments that are relevant a lot of the time. So
not comment for the sake of commenting.
Just get into the habit of being active, liking, sharing, commenting. Don't worry about the algorithm; it'll take care of itself. And I think that kind of leads me to suggest that just be yourself. Bring your personality to LinkedIn. That's one of the things that is a big mistake, but it's very, very difficult for some people to overcome. You know, this is your digital persona. This is what people will see even though you're not there, you know, 24/7. So you really need to make sure that the first impression's lasting, and that you try and project your personality through your profile. So I know for a fact, because you know we've met a number of times before COVID, and you know we know each other pretty well, that you've got a thing for 40s and 50s gear and clothing and all that kind of stuff. I would love to see that come through in your profile, because that's
it's a bit difficult, isn't it? I've realised that at the moment my brand in the real world is very much, as you say, the 40s and 50s style clothing. On now it's all Zoom. At the moment it's the curly hair, so I had to change my profile picture to make sure it's one where my hair wasn't straight. I rarely do that.
but yeah, you know, there's nothing to prevent you from mentioning in your about, for example, you know, you've got a penchant for 40s and 50s gear, and you know where the background to that came from, and you know you can. It's for me, I think it's pretty important that you get your personality out there, and I like to think that if I've connected with somebody on LinkedIn in the good old days, and then we met at a networking event, for example, or on a Zoom call, that I come across as the person they hoped I was going to be through my profile. So that's a challenge right now. I think people would do much better on LinkedIn if their personalities can be shown in their profiles. So we're kind of working on how we're going to get that, how we're going to achieve that for our clients to really get their personality across there. And you know, it's a business platform, but it's okay to be you know, to have a bit of a joke on there. It's okay to be playful on LinkedIn. It doesn't always have to be boring, stuffy business stuff. But it's not Facebook, and it's not.
Yeah, no one wants to see pictures of your dinner.
No, absolutely not. But you can still be playful. You can still be playful, is the message there. So I hope that helps. I hope that gives some people insights or a wee bit.
Yeah, definitely. And I think there's a lot of crossover. Like some things you're saying about the profile, it's exactly the same sorts of things I'm telling clients about when they're talking on their website, when they're thinking about their brochures, their advertising, etc. So it's interesting to hear that those same messages, like it is all about, as you say, it's all about what you achieve for the customer. It's about the customer.
Absolutely.
Then what you can do for them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. That's fantastic. I'm definitely going to rewatch this and take copious notes.
Just drop me a line. It's I mean that's you know, if you look on my profile, the green dot will always be a full green dot. I'm probably obsessed with LinkedIn if I'm completely honest with the people that are watching this. And you know, it's my messenger, it's my calendar, it's my prospecting tool, it's my database, it's my there's so many things that you can do, all in the free version. But whenever you see the green dot full, drop me a message, send me a voice message, whatever, you know. But one sort of other top tip I would give, or one tip I would give is you have the capability to record your pronunciation, which I find really sort of interesting. So you can record the pronunciation of your name on your on the mobile app, and then it appears on the computer app as well. So if somebody's got a bit of a problem understanding exactly how to pronounce your name, then your voice is telling them exactly. And it's a 10-second soundbite, so you can actually say, I think my message is something like, "Hi, Steve Ponton. I'm here to help with your LinkedIn training." So you get an opportunity again to sort of just market yourself a wee bit more, just by using that very, very simple small feature that you can use on your mobile. So lots and lots of features on LinkedIn that really need to understand how they're going to benefit you. And some stuff you'll just never use, but other stuff is very, very powerful in terms of getting your message and your brand out there.
Yeah, it sounds like lots of little tricks probably most of us are missing.
Yeah,
so
essentially, yeah. But in saying that, I don't want you to think of us as a sort of tips and tricks company. No. We have a tried and tested methodology that hundreds of people are using. It starts with clarify your brand. It then goes on to an optimized profile. There's no point in putting out fantastic content or messages or sharing or whatever if your viewer then comes back to a vacant profile with no further information, an inappropriate profile photograph, and inappropriate, I mean, downing 10 pints of lager in a bar in Ibiza, or sticking a flag in the top of Mount Everest, or you've cut off your partner in one of your wedding photographs and you've got a big, flower arrangement on your lapel. You wouldn't turn up to a business meeting looking like any of those. So, think a wee bit about what people what people might think of you when they first see you on LinkedIn. It's your digital persona, and it has to be your best shot at it, essentially. So
yeah. And it's all about building relationships, certainly from a business development point of view. It's building those relationships with connections.
I actually feel, and I've found throughout the COVID situation, that people are, okay, it's digital to begin with, but people are actually starting to have more insightful conversations, albeit, "Hi, I'm Steve. How are you getting on during this? How's your business been affected?" People are sort of realizing again that conversations can be had. And there's a train of thought again that says, don't send me a message that says, "Can we meet up for a virtual coffee?" and all that kind of stuff. Some people are quite happy to do that.
Yeah.
Some people make the immediate connection if your profile's been sort of put together correctly, and they are quite open to then say themselves, why don't we have a chat? They know that they may be a potential client rather than the other way around. But I think people are really just kind of yearning for more insightful, meaningful conversations. And if those start digitally on a conversation on LinkedIn, then so be it. If it helps people, then why not? Why not? So,
absolutely.
So good.
Well, thank you so much for that, Steve. So before we go, have you got anything to plug?
Yes, we have. Miles and I have been working very hard over the close down period, if you like. We appreciate that lots of people are new to LinkedIn. We appreciate that lots of companies have had to furlough their staff. The good thing about the furlough, if there is a good thing, is that training can still continue. So if you are furloughed but not allowed to do any kind of proper work for your business, you're still allowed to train. So we've taken part of our training methodology, and thankfully we've been allowed to promote it as a fully funded course from Skills Development Scotland. in partnership with the Power Within. And you can now, if you're eligible, have our training fully funded. So if you go to My World of Work, key in sales and business development in the digital era, you will get access to the information that tells you if you're eligible to have that fully funded by the authority. Alternatively, you can contact me directly. You'll find me on LinkedIn. My email address is steve@linkedinsuccesssystems.co.uk. We will carry on, as we've done for a number of years now, to do our free sessions. Those are online. So we've got a webinar on the 18th of February that everybody's welcome to come along to. We've had kind of 200 people on the last 2 webinars, so it actually works very much in our favour. There's no selling to be done on the webinars. It's all about helping people to understand how they can use LinkedIn more effectively to help their businesses. So we've got that coming up on the 18th. And as I said, Samantha, earlier, my green dot is always lit. Drop me a message. I'll always respond. You can ask me questions on features of LinkedIn, how to change X, Y, or Z, how to improve my profile picture, how to get rid of unwanted people connecting with you, etc. So always open to do that. I think this is a time where everybody really has to help each other out. We've been blessed, I suppose, in that LinkedIn is a platform that lots and lots of people have turned to find jobs, to help with their CV, to continue their business development activities or their sales activities, regardless of what you think you might use it for. Get in touch, and we'll be happy to help.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Right, I shall be putting, wherever I post this, I shall be putting Steve's information and links in for his training.
That's so kind. That's so kind. Thanks.
And yeah, thanks very much, Steve. And thank you for everyone for viewing this.
Good. What's the dog's name?
The dog's name is Ty. He
Ty.
was Tyson when we adopted him. We thought it was a terrible name for a dog, so we dropped the son. He's just Ty now.
Ty, that's brilliant. Right. Well, thanks for joining us, Ty. He looks completely bored. I don't think he's the target. I don't think he's the target audience for LinkedIn at all, is he? No.
Definitely not. Definitely not. He's worn himself out playing in the snow. That's.
Well, thanks, Ty. And thank you, Samantha, for inviting me on. Thanks a lot.
No, thank you.
Okay, take care.